Welcome to Good Vibes TV. I'm your host, Leslie Klein, here to explore ways to raise your vibration so you can thrive. In this episode, my guest is Kristin Geeslin, known as the Mindful Seer. She's been a practitioner and senior student of Vajrayana Buddhism for 30 years. She's a 4-Clair psychic medium with degrees in psychology and human resource development. Please welcome from the Gulf Coast of Florida, Kristin Geeslin.
Hey, Kristin. Good morning. So nice to see you, Leslie.
Yes, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, it's surely my pleasure, and I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to be on your new show. And who knew that years ago when we met each other, this is where we'd be, a few years ahead.
The universe works in mysterious ways, that's for sure. I would have never seen myself in this position, but I'm so glad that we're reconnecting. And you're involved in some very interesting work. I mean, the fact that you've been into this special kind of Buddhism for 30 years is amazing. But I wanted to start with the 4-Clair psychic medium that you are, for people that don't know what clair means. I know it's clairvoyance. So could you talk about your what you mean by 4-Clair psychic medium?
Sure. Clairs are sort of like clear versions of your senses. So it's your regular senses, but then when it extends to the spidey sense, then it's called a clair. So clairvoyant is when you see things, clairaudient is when you hear things, clairsentient is when you sense things, and claircognizant is when you just know things that you don't really have any right to know. And often people have at least one or maybe two of these clairs, but they're just not tuned into it. Most people have had experiences where they knew things, but they didn't know how they knew. And so that's one of the ways, claircognizant, or some people feel are what we would call empaths. There's a lot on the internet now about being empathic. So, yeah.
Now, you also describe yourself as a mindful seer. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, as it turns out, the way my clairs opened, I was intuitive as a teenager, but then the way they opened up was through lots and lots of meditation. And so sometimes when people have intuitive gifts, they don't really have a mindfulness practice that goes with it, and they can get ungrounded. So fortunately, because my clairs opened through a long-term meditation practice, I'm also able to kind of stay present moment and grounded in the 3D. At the same time, I'm tapping and living in the 5D and into, we would call maybe the matrix.
Now you explain a little bit more about the 3D versus the 5D. I know a little bit about it, but our audience may not. So how would you describe this?
Oh, absolutely. So the 3D is kind of where we live our everyday lives, our eating, our sleeping, our relationships, the things that we can see, hear, feel, and touch in a regular way. The 5D has to do more with sort of the interaction between consciousness and manifestation. So when things like you think of something that you want, or you're imagining a situation or circumstance, and then poof, it appears, that's sort of like the 5D speaking to you. Or sometimes we just have like a sense that we have met somebody before, that could be a prior connection from a prior lifetime. The kind of when we were sensing, it's sort of the 5D is sort of where the clairs are active, and where we are connecting with more than just our own consciousness. We're more connected into other people's consciousnesses and even nature. Also, we're all in that sort of super consciousness together.
Wow, that's really interesting. I know there's a lot of talk about the 5D, and it does make sense, but there's also this thought that the people that are not aware of the 5D, that are staying or choosing to stay in a 3D world, and how life for them might be a little bit more difficult. Is that essentially?
I think what's happening is there's a strong need currently for being flexible and open and present because of all the change in our culture. Like Alvin Toffler wrote a book many decades ago, like in the 60s, called Future Shock. And it had to do with, how quickly things are going to start to change. culturally, and just in terms of what it's like to be a human on planet Earth. And so those of us that have been interested in consciousness for many decades sort of have some of the skills that are required to live in a world that's changing so fast. But if you were not really interested in that, and you were more focused on kind of a more traditional lifestyle that didn't include meditation or consciousness exploration, it's going to be tougher to kind of adapt to what's going on now.
Definitely. In your bio, you state that you empower others to find greater peace, happiness, and life satisfaction through empathy enhancement, intuitive activation, and mindful creative expression. Can you talk about what those are? Like, what is empathy enhancement?
Well, we are naturally empathic and empathetic. Empathy, empathic, all of it, all of the EMP. We are naturally like that. But we're not always encouraged. Our very commercial world encourages a lot of like external focus, on how you smell and how you look and what car you drive and all that stuff, driven by Madison Ave and capitalist culture. So we're not necessarily encouraged to, like feel into our heart center, or, if we were in the same situation as another person, how would we want it to be? How would we like to be treated? More about connecting through the heart. And the first place you have to connect through the heart is with yourself, because if you can't be compassionate with yourself, you surely aren't going to be compassionate with other people. And sometimes that's hard because we've been trained and enculturated to be productive and be successful. And sometimes what our body says it needs, or what our heart space needs, or, really what our passions are not always lining up with whatever we might perceive those external demands to require from us.
And how do you help people enhance their empathy? Just by talking? Or are there other procedures that you use?
There's a lot of different ways to help people connect better with themselves, and part of that I do with people is the B.E.I.S.M mindfulness method, where we break the whole being into the whole internal world of the body, the emotions, your intellectual life, your spirit soul journey, and then your relationship with a higher power. And by just kind of turning the focus from the outer world to the inner world, anyone can be more sensitive to what's best for them. And of course, the people that you love, and just better align how you choose to live your day-to-day life with your true values.
So you mentioned B.E.I.S.M. And that's your particular way of your particular process that you go through with people? Or
well, that's one. I have a lot of tools that I use, when I work with people. I have a few of them right here actually at the handy. I like to use cards, like cards are very popular right now. Tarot cards, oracle cards. And it's a great way for people to have fun while turning inward, and also connecting with if they feel they have guides, or however they relate with spirit or higher power. And this one has 3 different decks in it. And I call this the baking bowl of belief, because everything that we manifest in our lives comes out of our beliefs.
Are the tools then part of helping with the intuitive activation?
Indeed. I like to help people start to kind of call on their own intuitive abilities, because I don't want them to be like forever, dependent on me. I'm way more excited and have way more fun getting them into finding out how to connect with their higher self on their own. So yeah, definitely that is one of the ways. And a lot of times people are already intuitively connecting. It's just they have a hard time honoring those messages. So the more there is not a lot of encouragement for that necessarily, unless they're hanging out with a bunch of woo people. But so then I will just start to encourage them to pay more attention when they are getting that intuitive guidance, and take the risk to follow it and see what happens. And then the more experiences someone has with following the intuitive guidance and having it work out, then they're more willing to do that more often.
Awesome. And then the third part was mindful creative expression. So how do you develop that with your clients?
Right. I feel like mindful creative expression is sort of like a natural like effect of doing certain prior causes. So if you start to tune into your intuition and you spend more time tapping into what you really enjoy and what really brings you peace and so forth, then when you make choices about how you're going to do things in the world, it's more purposeful, okay, and ends up being more satisfying because it's guided more through that what's good for the whole kind of way of being, not coming out of ego necessarily. It's more coming out of, what's sort of like your divine purpose, your divine mission on planet Earth.
Mm-hmm. You've practiced the special kind of Buddhism for 30 years. Can you tell us a little bit about Vajrayana Buddhism?
Sure. It's very ancient. This is like, most people know Vajrayana by Tibetan Buddhism. So most people know who the Dalai Lama is. So the Buddhism that I practice is like the same Buddhism that the Dalai Lama practices. And it came into my life. I think the first time I ever met somebody that was a Vajrayana person, I was in college, and I went to an event at the Temple of the Living God in St. Petersburg, and a small meditation instruction was given. And then I started doing that practice. I was at Ecker College at the time. And then one thing led to the next, and I ended up meeting other Vajrayana monks. And then eventually I was connected with my current teachers. And, for the most part, it's been a private practice. I don't teach Vajrayana to others, but it informs a lot of the way I make decisions, and the actual meditative practices are frequency raising. So way before it was popular to have a high frequency, I've been engaging in yogic practices that do raise your frequency.
Let's talk more about that, raising your vibration and ways you do it. Now, this type of Buddhism is one way that you're talking about raising your frequency. Is that the only way that you do it? And why is it so important for a person to raise their vibration?
Well, essentially, we magnetize what we are. And so our beliefs interact with that. But whatever level of energy that we're emitting is what we're going to basically magnetize to, attract, and mix with. So if we want to have more happiness and pleasure and delight in our lives, then it's for our highest good to be focused on raising our vibration. Negative emotions do not have a high vibration, but we can't just bypass negative emotions. We have to learn how to feel our feelings and work with our feelings in our emotional life in more mindful ways. And then gradually, the way we see the world starts to change, and it's easier to work with some of those more rigorous emotional internal states.
Wonderful. We're going to take a small break right now, but when we come back, we're going to talk more about ways to raise your vibration and maybe some techniques that you can share with our audience on how to do that. Welcome back to Good Vibes TV. I'm your host, Leslie Klein, here today with Kristin Geeslin, the Mindful Seer. Kristin, we've been talking about ways to raise our vibration, and you were talking about the Vajrayana practices. Can you expand a little bit more? Are there some of these Buddhist practices that the average person can actually use to raise their vibration?
Well, sure. The first thing that everybody can do is just a quiet sitting, what they call shamatha practice. So that's when, you're sitting quietly and you're just observing what's happening with yourself, whether you're watching your thoughts coming and going, whether you're following your breath. There might be emotions that come up to the surface, but the idea is to sit quietly while you let all that happen without following along a pathway. Like, for instance, if you let's say you feel pain in your knee, instead of saying, oh, I feel the pain in my knee and that's driving me crazy and I'm so tired of it and I wish it would stop. Instead of that, you're just like, oh, there's that pain in my knee again. Take a breath, relax. Or whatever comes in, whatever thought comes by. Okay, oh, gee, did I pay the car payment? I don't know if I did or not. Okay, there's that. Yep, I probably should get to the bills. That's nice. Thank you. Take a breath, relax. So that's, like the most basic of mindfulness practices, to just observe what's coming in and allowing it to come and go while we maybe focus on our breath and keep returning to a center point.
So breathing, being mindful, being aware of our thoughts, and then getting centered again.
Yeah.
Not freaking out, not letting those thoughts throw us off balance.
Exactly. Yep.
So what other ways what other methods do you use to raise your vibration?
Well, I personally love to dance. All right. So, I mean, in fact, when my child was 8 and there was, it was a lot of work. I worked full-time professional, single mom, very busy. I did a lot of time at a computer at that time. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be locked in computer position. I thought, what can I do to make myself have fun and really enjoy my life? And so dancing is what came to me. And I started doing some belly dancing back then, which I've done off and on throughout all that time. My daughter is almost 27 now. So dancing is a way to raise your vibration for sure.
Mm-hmm. I love belly dance. I haven't done it in quite a while, but I just love belly dance. So let's talk more about how do you shift your vibe with compassion and loving kindness. So those are attributes of Buddhism, I would imagine, right?
Yes, I will confess that I was quite rebellious as a young person, and I didn't do anything out of convention. Something had to be proven to me. It had to be shown to me. I just couldn't be nice because I could only be nice really from my heart. I couldn't do something just because it was like the socially accepted thing to do or the requirement to do. The first time I really remember being upset about something and then the compassion coming in, I was working for an agency, a human service agency, and the administration was doing something that I didn't like. And I found myself getting more and more upset as I was thinking about it, because I felt they were doing something the wrong way or whatever. I wasn't okay with what they were doing. And suddenly it occurred to me, oh, I think they might be doing the best they can. Was like, oh, wow. This light came on and I was like, oh, they're doing the best they can. Why am I getting upset?
Mm-hmm.
And I stopped the train. I was like, oh, I'm going to accept that they're doing the best they can. And then, of course, there was nothing to push against. There was no more upset because I just solved that by not being upset about it anymore. Instead, I was like, oh, it just popped in my head. Oh, compassion. Oh, what would that look like? And then suddenly the next thought was, they're doing the best they can. Don't be on their case. And then by not being on their case, then I felt better.
Right.
So, that was like, I had a hard time with structures and stuff, which I'm sure you can understand since I'm an empath and all this spidey sense stuff was going all the time. A lot of times in my life, I've been able to see where things could go wrong or where things were off kilter, where other people weren't seeing it. And before I came out as a seer, I didn't always know how to communicate that to other people in a way that was constructive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sometimes that got me into some hot water.
So it's hard when you're getting information from the other side and you have a message for someone, but you're not sure if they're able to accept it. How do you determine whether or not you share that message or don't share that message?
Right. Luckily, at this point, pretty much everybody in my social universe knows that I have gifts. And for the most part, I don't share information with people unless, first of all, I don't get a lot of spidey sense information unless I tune into it, because I set it up that way. You know, as a seer, we can ask the universe to respect our boundaries when we're not trying to help someone. So we're not just getting stuff 24/7, because that is just too much for most people. There are times when things happen spontaneously. Like a few months ago, well, it was a while ago now, maybe 6 months ago, I went just spontaneously to this place where I like to walk my dog, and a man was there and he was watering plants at a public garden. And I said, "Oh, is that your garden? Did you make that?" He said, "Yes, it's for my wife who passed a year ago." And then in a time like that, I feel spirit has sent me there. And so then I will listen to see if there's any messages coming from the person who's passed. We spoke quite a long time. The man's world completely expanded after his wife passed in terms of his sense of what reality was about. He just got a lot more open to spiritual concepts and ideas. And the only thing that came through, because I'm like listening for a message, the only thing that came through to me was a tennis racket. And he had shared with me when I first got there that he realized he wasn't going to spend his golden years with his beloved because she'd been gone for a year, but he wanted to start dating, but not yet. Soon, but not yet. But his wife, so then the tennis racket came through. And then when it was about time for me to say goodbye to him, he said, "Oh yeah, my wife told me before she died, if I ever slept with anyone else, that she would come through and haunt me to the end of my days." So I asked him about the tennis racket, and he told me the only time that he and his wife had played tennis was when they were dating, which to me was the message that yes, it's okay, you know,
to date.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. Yes,
Yeah.
when you're walking kind of in that, well, the Native Americans call it walking beauty, I guess, but when you're walking with spirit and you're following your intuition and you're in the flow, you get put in situations where you can help people. And I guess if you set that intention for the universe to bring you the people, the viewers, whoever it is that you can help, then that helps with that flow.
Right. And I've been asking that since I was in a psychology of consciousness class when I was like 19 years old in college, and I started asking that question. At the time, I used the word, "God, what do you want me to do with my life? I'm about to have the psychology degree. Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do?" So I've been shaping that service intention for a really long time.
Wonderful. That's awesome. Well, here's a question. Is there a way for you to tune in and give a message to our audience?
Oh, yeah, there is a big message that's been coming through that I wanted to share with everyone, and then I'll check into this moment. But one of the things that has come through this year is that this year has so much change in it. And there's going to be, it's like a year for building new foundations. So a lot of the time it may feel like you can't get ground, like you can't get in a routine, like you don't know where you are, what you're doing, or how things are going to go. And essentially this year is a lot about centering and then course correct, center, course correct. So don't feel stressed or upset if you can't get into like a routine or you don't know exactly how things are going to go. I'm not sensing that that's what this year is going to be at all. And even for myself, I had to remind myself, and one of my clients who I said that to has reminded me, because, you know, we like routines as human beings. We like to know what to expect. We like to know, you know, what's upcoming. And I just don't feel that this year is a year that we can expect that. So it's basically a lot of extra self-care so that we can stay centered and keep doing the new or different thing that's coming to us.
Wonderful.
And let's just pull a card or two for fun, just to see at the moment. Okay, Spirit, what would you like for our audience to know? What's the energy around, let's say, what's going to happen in the next 6 months? Oh, cute. I love this. So even though there's a lot of change, okay, so the card that comes out is, this is the trust card. Okay. And you know how dogs are, like, they are just like, they just hang out and they're chill and they're loyal. And, you know, I almost feel like Spirit wants us to just trust this process, that, you know, we've made it through COVID for the most part. And now it's time for us to just like go step by step into the newness of what's to come in this year.
Well, thank you for that. It's time for another break, but when we come back, we're going to find out more about your offering, your special offering for the Good Vibes viewers, and other ways that people can contact you if they'd like to get a reading or work on their intuitive development. We'll be right back.
Right.
Welcome back to Good Vibes TV. I'm Leslie Klein, interviewing Kristin Geeslin, the Mindful Seer. Now, Kristin, bring you back here. You just gave us a wonderful message from Spirit for our audience, for our viewers. And I love that. And I loved how you just picked a card too about loyalty, dogs, and how that related to the next 6 months. Are there any other messages that how about one for the United States? I know that the United States is going through a Pluto return. And I'm not super familiar with all of astrology. I follow it, but I'm not like an expert. So this Pluto return is significant for the United States. And we've been going through
so cute. This is really cute. This is so unexpected. This is so not what you're going to think. It's so funny. Okay, so we all know that everybody has been inside a lot and for too long, for 2 years and plus, okay? Mm-hmm. So the card that is coming out this is from the White Squirrel deck from James Wanless, and it says to exercise, to get physical, be mobile, and breathe. Okay, so a lot of people did put on some extra weight during COVID, and we've had a lot of extra stress. And so this is like a foolproof solution to feeling better mentally, physically, and opening up your spiritual self. You know, yoga is a huge thing for opening up channels, you know, your intuitive channels. But anytime that we move our bodies and we have that chi flow, you know, we're going to be in a better state. So it's almost like, you know, if you're not in a good state physically, it's going to be really challenging to be in a good state mentally or spiritually to do the activities or make the decisions that the United States needs to do.
So is a message for all Americans to get out there and start exercising?
That's the message. That's the message. It's funny, you know, because when you ask the question, you think, oh, you know, it's going to be a mindset thing. It's like, no, Spirit's like, it's almost like, it almost sort of goes with the trust message to me. Like things will take care of themselves if you do the basics, you know, and one of the basics is to take care of this physical temple and honor it. And it has been trying and challenging for people who were behind a computer for 2 years. I know a lot of people are still struggling to get the COVID weight off. And they say now sitting is the new smoking. So, you know, in order to stay well, we have to move. And I'm also feeling like this may have something to do also with moving the chi, moving the stuckness. That movement is a way to process energy. And the more time we spend sort of just in our heads worrying, it just magnifies it for everybody. It's not the way to clear the energy. So it also, that's what's coming to me metaphysically. At a metaphysical level, movement and exercise help move energy through.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So if someone wants a reading or coaching with you, how can they reach you?
Well, my phone number is 727-678-3761. And yep, there it is. And if you can text me first, then I'm happy to, spend some time talking with you about the variety of services that I offer and what might be, a good option, good options for you. I am available on Facebook through Messenger. You can find me in Facebook also by just putting in the Mindful Seer. I will pop up, my pro page will pop up. And those are probably the two easiest ways to connect with me are those two ways. I will, as I said, I'm happy to spend some time talking with you personally. I'd also like to offer something that I do at Intuitive Fairs, which I call Soup and Salad. So you can get a sense of me, a small taste. For $60, I will spend 30 minutes with you, which is a pretty fair rate, and give you a taste of the B.E.I.S.M intuitive wellness reading that I do, as well as one belief shift with theta healing. We didn't even get into theta healing, but that's a belief transformation modality that I'm quite skillful in. And then I have a package for 7 sessions for $9.99, which would be mostly intuitive mentoring. And if you're willing to pay me in 3 chunks, I'll even do 9 sessions for $9.99. And there's like a smorgasbord of things that I do for people based on where they are and what they need right now. And usually when I work with people over time, I tailor the session that time based on what's happening in their life. A recent client has been getting theta healing, but she had a really crazy week. And so then we just did some mindfulness exercises and we just got back grounded, and she just processed that thing that was going on then. So I've been working with people one-on-one professionally since I was 20. I'm 58. So it's pretty easy for me to kind of calibrate what's best for the moment. And I also, the intuitive thing pretty much is in charge of whatever happens.
That's awesome. Now, we talked a little bit about the B.E.I.S.M. Can you go over that again and what a B.E.I.S.M?
Yeah, what I do is I check on how people are doing on 5 frequencies, 5 levels. So the body, what's happening there, which also includes how you make your money and where you're living, your emotional life, your intellectual life, your spirit soul journey, and the M is for mastermind, or your relationship with your higher power. And once again, that's a way of turning inward and just checking to see how you're doing at all levels. This also pretty much tends to follow the chakra system. So we're starting at a lower frequency and moving up the chakras when we do the B-E-I-S-M.
I love that. I think that's so cool. And just how it spells B-ism, which is another reminder to just be.
Right. And I also like it because I feel as we go forward in consciousness, I mean, I love that I'm a Celt, that's part of my identity. I love that I'm a Floridian. I live on the west coast of Florida. I love that I'm a citizen of the United States, but I'm also a member of a global village. And what happens with me internally affects how I show up in the global village way more than any of these other things that are on the outside. I want everybody to understand that we're all the same inside, and still appreciate and honor and enjoy all these external differences, and honor our culture, honor our ancestors. But ultimately, even the Dalai Lama is like, hey, we have got to get over these artificial separating distinctions and move forward as a unified global village.
And it's all about compassion and empathy and, not judging other people and seeing them as separate from us, but really connecting and knowing that we're all one. And it's not just one human, but also one with nature, one with the earth, one with the animals, and one with our cosmic family as well, which not everyone kind of acknowledges, right?
Right. That's a whole nother television show.
It is. I want to thank you, Kristin, so much for spending your time with us today and sharing your offerings and your wonderful message to our viewers. Do you have any last thoughts before we close?
I just want to thank you so much, Leslie, for the opportunity. And I wish all the best for the Good Vibe Show. I'm just thrilled that you, and for the Legrity Network, I'm very, very pleased that there's more and more positive social media and media programming to support people elevating their consciousness.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very thankful for just the opportunity to have the show and to get the word out. It's kind of like an extension of when I had my metaphysical store and cafe, kind of just bring it to another platform. So thank you so much, Kristin. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you, Good Vibes viewers, for watching. Please connect with us on good-vibes.tv. It'll take you to our Facebook page where you can communicate with us. And remember to raise your vibe so you can thrive. Peace out, everyone.